Good day and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar will focus on the sale of some of our non-core assets to Sayona Mining, which closed last week, as well as recent exploration news and what you can expect from Troilus in the coming months. Before we get started, I'd like to address a couple of items. This webinar will be recorded and you can find a replay on our website. We'll also share a link to it on our social accounts once available. After the presentation, we'll have a moderated Q&A session, so please submit your questions at any time in the Q&A window and we'll address them at the end. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Troilus Gold CEO and Director, Justin Reid. Over to you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's been a very, very busy few months for Troilus, and I think I'm gonna talk about the transaction, some of our recent results, and the development of our asset. And despite the volatile gold market, I can honestly say Troilus has not been in a better footing than it is right now. And so I look forward to giving you a quick update and then answering any questions you may have. Standard disclaimer, cautionary statements that you've all read, so I'm just going to go through it, and a few different screens that you may not have seen before. But here's a snapshot of Troilus and what we've done. To remind you, Troilus was a past producing mine in northern Quebec, operated for 14 years, 2 million ounces of gold, 70,000 tons of copper. We have a significant amount of inherited and upgraded infrastructure. We're located in a great jurisdiction. Our new land size is just under 450 square kilometers, which is still one of the largest exploration packages. And I'll talk to you about the rationale, sizing, scale, and development of that. We're about $115 million market cap. Our PA was out in September of 2020 that talked about a very long life, large producer, and the feasibility which we're working on will magnify that. Our PA included 81,000 meters of drilling. We are almost at 300,000 meters of drilling. And so new resource, new engineering, and moving forward is going to incorporate almost 200,000 meters of new drilling, which is an immense amount. The mineral resource we'll talk about as well. Quick reminder where we are. Up in the top left, we're in Quebec. We're just north of the Abitibi Greenstone Belt. We're in the Frotette-Evans Greenstone Belt, where we have a very large land position and a big resource. Quebec, we're part of Plan Nord, and Quebec remains one of the best jurisdictions to operate. So we're not going to go through Troilus 101 that we usually go through. We're going to focus on a few key things. So let's talk about our deal with Sayona Mining. And just to put into frame who Sayona is. Sayona is depending on the day, a $2 billion Australian listed lithium company. They're currently building the North American lithium assets in Val-d'Or. They own the Moblin deposit at the southwest end of what we call the Troilus belt. And within about 100 days, they're going to be producing first cash flow and are on their way to becoming one of North America's largest lithium producers. Well capitalized, great team, and operationally within Quebec, one of the best teams I've seen. We sold to Sayona about 985 square kilometers of ground. You can see it on the picture on the right. The rationale for this was both strategic and kind of a corporate plan and objective that we had. So first of all, we sold it for $40 million in Sayona stock. And if anybody's looked at Sayona, they have over 8 billion shares out. They trade about $95 million a day on the ASX, and we have no restrictions to the stock. It's free trading. It's in our account now. If monetization needs to occur, it can. As well, in two tranches, we completed a $10 million private placement with Sayona, making them one of our largest shareholders at 9.3%. Deal was done at 49 cents, and based on the combined prices was done at a pretty significant premium. We retain a 2% NSR, which can on any materials within the sales transferred ground for $20 million. Now, why did we do this? One, once we started expanding the mineralization and the corridor at the Troilus mine site, as I've spoken about in the past, we identified that the belt had been poorly explored. And through a series of acquisitions, staking, some land deals, we acquired over the last 4 years, a very large 1,400 square kilometer land package. For the last 3 years, we have flown airborne over the entire property. We have completed ground reconnaissance, soil till sampling, and really blanketed the entire property for what we call first pass. From that, we identified a core mineralized horizon or corridor where we focused our efforts. And I'll talk to you about some of those targets which you've heard of in the past and what's happening there. As such, just like when you acquire ground, the government has a work fee. And on a yearly basis, it accelerates and increases. And so they're always driving you to either advance the ground or move the ground on. And so for Troilus, as a company of our size, we maintained a 400 square kilometer land package with impactful assets and projects that we think ultimately will add a lot of value to Troilus. The rest of the ground was very expensive for us to keep and was non-core to us. There is a lot of opportunity for new discoveries on that property. We certainly haven't exhausted the work, but we need to keep our dollars focused. And as such, it was an incredibly accretive deal for us. Not only did we bring in a big shareholder, but that $40 million is going to give us a lot of runway as we move through permitting, engineering, and ultimately into production. To put in perspective with where our share price is now, if we were to come to the market and there were buyers available, assuming no discount and assuming that you're not putting a warrant on the deal, that would have been over 80 million shares in dilution. So as such, it was incredibly accretive to our shareholders going forward. And that's really the summary of the deal. I'm sure more will come out in the questions, but it gives us a solid footing with over a $50 million deal and the upside maintained through an NSR. So certainly accretive and well regarded by the market. So the snapshot you've seen, we remain well covered by the street, and please reach out to Troilus's info if you'd ever like any of the reports. As of July 31st, cash was good, but decreasing because we're drilling. And certainly the influx of capital puts us in an absolutely steady position. Little update to this. So Sayona now owns just over 9% of us, still 60% institutionally held, of which almost 15% is Quebec. Investment Quebec being the biggest portion of that. Investment Quebec is partners with Sayona and Moblin. And the Moblin asset is going to be a very significant spodumene producing pegmatite at the end of our road, about 32 kilometers away. And so certainly having Investment Quebec participating on both sides is good for everybody. So let's talk about the ground that we did keep. Obviously, we don't need to talk about the mine, but over the last 3 years, we identified really 4 key targets in exploration. There's a main mine, which has the Gap, 87 South, the new discoveries, Alonge slightly to the north and southwest. Bain and Cressidia remain a major focus for us. Troilus looking material 8 kilometers away, easily fed to a mill. Testard in the number 3 box, Testard and Bullseye really brings us that high grade potential. And I have another slide on that, close to the power line in the green. And again, any high grade that can feed a lower grade ore body is accretive. And then down at number 4 at our Palador and Rocket area, really exciting essentially encompassing Sumitomo and Kenora Lands discovery. So lots of work has been ongoing there all summer long, and until the snow flew just recently. So let's talk about them individually. So to start, you're about 7 kilometers to the power line and then 10 kilometers to our site. Discovered a couple of years ago, up to 6-ounce material in outcrop. Geophysics completed, trenching is in a tonalitic intrusion, and then there's a major shear out to the west. And last year we put in a couple of holes just to test that that contact between the ultramafics and the intrusions, and stratigraphic holes actually turned into identification of fairly significant mineralization. 7.6 meters of almost 5 grams, and you can read them on the right-hand column. We have gone in and we've drilled a couple more holes. Quite excited about the prospects there, and I look forward to getting those to you. But certainly, here is an area that is the size of the Troilus mine site that has had almost no exploration and is showing the affinity to higher grades. So one of our favorite targets. And then down in the south in Palador and Rocket, we put the Renault drill discovery from Sumitomo and Kenora Land there, 30 meters of 8.5 grams, and absolutely fabulous discovery. To the south, very close to that, our initial work has identified over a 4-kilometer gold trend. High-grade boulders, some outcrop samples, and more importantly, the soil geochemistry that's come back has shown a very defined gold trend. And with some of the subsequent elements that we see there as well, showing that we are more or less in place. We've drilled, we've just completed a drill program there, and I look forward to getting our initial results out to the market as well. Again, very exciting, right next to Route du Nord and to our site. But that's the regional side, and those provide future opportunities. Focusing at the Troilus mine site has always been, 9.5 cents of every dime that we spend. And we've had some major developments. The 2 pits, the 87 and J 4 is where the 2 million ounces was produced. The southwest was a new discovery where we have drilled significant amount and extended the mineralization over a footprint as large as 87 and J, and it will become a major contributor to a future operation. There is our resource as of September 2020. A new resource is expected shortly. It's kind of like herding cats. We're dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and look forward to getting it out very shortly. Hopefully we can get it out before Christmas, but finding a final few pieces to sign off on as everybody's trying to get things done is tough. It might be very early in the new year, but certainly right at the final stages. The one thing I would say is to just remind you, this is kind of 87,000 meters, sorry, 81,000 meters of drilling. Our new resource is going to have an additional 200,000 meters. A lot of that was infill, so expect reserve as we increase the indicated, but certainly we've shown a lot of growth. And really, here's some of this main mineral corridor. I'm going to focus the next couple of minutes talking about X22 and the connector, because this has changed everything for us. I've got 2 slides on each. You can read the numbers there, but Troilus doesn't need more ounces. Troilus needs higher grade, and the higher grade earlier on, the better any deposit gets. And what we've certainly identified is the opportunity to do that. So here's a new slide you haven't seen, but this is more of a layout of X22, and talk about Troilus is a circa 1 gram or just under 1 gram ore body, and we have identified, actually the road between the pits kind of just shoots to the north here. 2.5 grams over 25 meters and some higher grades within there. 17 meters at 2, 46 at 4.4. 25 at 2.5 is right at surface. And so if we're able to put in 20, 30, 40 or higher percentage grade early on, it has a demonstrative impact on what are very good economics. And so it accelerates your payback, it drives back your NAV, and in many cases, it provides optionality to reduce some CapEx. We have drilled it out, or our initial release of X22 was over 300 meter strike length. We are now drilling outside of that, and we see no reason as it shoots up into the gap. Interestingly, it's in the hanging wall of Z87, not in our standard brecciated diorites that we see. And as such, this whole I've got another diagram that shows it maybe a little better, but this whole hanging wall provides a huge opportunity for Troilus that really wasn't previously considered by previous operators or by us. Here's another map to put it into scale for you. Certainly, we think that that whole target area can turn into reality, and in fact may extend outside of that. And to put in perspective, here's the J4 pit as well, the hanging wall coming right between the two. Same highlights as previous. And then we go to the connector, and you can kind of see it over on the right side. Connecting J4 and 87, it's been a very interesting evolution. Initially, it was interpreted by Inmet and others that there was a fault between the two, and they just kind of splayed apart. Then when we started our drilling in 2019 and 2020, we saw these fold geometries, and we thought there was a potential to be folded on top of each other, either at a local or regional scale. Now what we're seeing is just a series of stacked ore bodies that could potentially, or lenses that could extend the entire strike length. And some of the saddle zone or connector zone between the J and 87 has just provided some incredible drill results. 91 meters of 1, 24 of almost 2, 138 of 1.75, including 3.5 over 38. And I won't just read the results. You can see 419, 98 over 1.35, extending right from surface down to depth. So again, provides early access, higher grade, it remains wide open. And again, it's this hanging wall component of 87, which really hadn't been tested, that we are testing. And there's also some sampling going on from previous drilling where those zones hadn't been sampled. So those are game changers for us because it's higher grade early. And for us, that was a major contributor to the decision to go straight to a feasibility study. We want to include all of that higher grade, and over in a 3-phase program, we're going to be drilling that out, and it's already underway. So I'm mainly going to save a lot of the commentary for questions, but where we are now, we are drilling now, and we will continue to drill for the foreseeable future. All of our drilling is focused at the Troilus mine on X22 and on the connector zone, because that's going to have immediate impact for the definitive feasibility study. Met work has already been sent away for X22. Engineering and a lot of the things we have done had already been at a very advanced level. So certainly geotech and tailings and metallurgical work was already at a feasibility level. So we are going to put out a new resource. It will not include those new zones. Then the ongoing drilling driving towards a feasibility in the second half of next year. That moves directly to the feasibility, just like the deal we did with Sayona. It maintains our timeline. We're not losing any time. As well, it is actually saving us some money because you're not closing off one study and restarting the other through a whole tender process. So everything remains on track. A lot of things we can't control, and as we can't control, we will address them. But certainly, the impact of this new high grade going forward is going to have, I believe, a dramatic impact on what is a very, very good asset, and it's going to make it a lot to make it great. And as well, now we have a balance sheet where we have all of the runway in a volatile market to deliver all of this without having to come back and ask for capital. And I think that is a major point of differentiation between Troilus and others right now, is that our capital is in such great shape. That deal was incredibly accretive. We sold something that most people didn't even consider, and we got a great new shareholder through kind of a sidecar private placement with them. So with that, Carolyn, I'm going to stop talking, and actually I'm going to go back to a slide that's worth talking about in the future, maybe, and I'm happy to answer any questions that have been coming in over the last few days.
Great. We do have a few that have come in, but I would say that you've addressed most of those in your presentation. So the only one I might throw to here is, what do you think Sayona's long-term objective might be in buying 9% of Troilus?
I mean, I can't comment for Sayona, but certainly, if I go back to a diagram. Let's go back to the deal diagram there. Mobilin's right here. Here's the Troilus Mine Road. We signed a cooperation agreement as part of this deal. So not only on stakeholder communications and outreach, but also on potential opportunities for infrastructure sharing. We're kind of bookends in a belt. We're not in competition, and I think that going forward there could be tons of opportunities for us to reduce capital and manpower and maximize returns for both companies. So we're working with Sayona to kind of find the best path forward for that, and it doesn't hurt to have a big brother that is there to help if you need it in the future.
And Justin, will Sayona be getting board representation?
No, no board representation, certainly at this time, and there's no commitment to do that. But again, we have a collaboration agreement, so we're in constant conversations, both at the corporate level and right down to boots on the ground.
Okay, and just the last one. What risks are there that this mine might not get built? Will you build and operate, or will you sell to an existing operator?
Great question. I mean, we kind of get it every time. My job is to deliver shareholder value per share. And I think this deal was a great example of us doing that, bringing a lot of capital in on a non-core asset that has created a new relationship and given us a balance sheet to move forward, all positive. We have put a team in place to build this. Certainly we have the technical ability to do it. We will need to grow materially as a company as we go through the various de-risking, and we're prepared to do that. We have the shareholders to do that. But certainly Troilus is going to be a huge operation. And so as we move through the feasibility study, we will obviously look at what's in the best interest of our shareholders. Is it for us to continue down the path, building it and producing gold, and we are ready and planning to do that? Or is it to bring in a big brother and a partner to do that with us, where we use somebody else's capital and we maintain a significant holding for our shareholder? For me, it's math. It's value per share, ultimately. And so we're prepared to do both. But as of today, we are moving down the construction path, which means that the engineering and the geological and the environmental work that we do, as well as our communications with our stakeholders and engagement with our stakeholders, has to be bulletproof. And that's what we're doing.
Great. Well, I think we've covered all the bases. Is there anything else you wanted to add before wrapping up?
No, certainly happy to answer any more questions offline. Please reach out to Troilus or to me directly. We are always available. And I think that this format worked well. So I think in the future, we'll be doing more of these perhaps quarterly updates. And so we can and maybe let some other people talk too.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you tuning in. If you don't already, please take a moment to follow Troilus on social media to keep track of our latest developments, and we'll see you next time.